Well, hello. Good morning. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Hello and welcome to our online devotion and prayer meeting. Glad you could be with us. Hopefully everything is working good. Can everyone hear me? I'm going to wait and try to get confirmation that the sound is working. In the meantime, if you can hear me, I would ask that you go grab some pieces of paper and pencils for our activity that we'll be doing here shortly. Also this morning, feel free to ask questions, especially when we get to our devotion. I'm going to be trying to interact and answer any questions anyone has on our topic this morning. And just if anyone has any questions about what we're doing at the church as a whole, or how these videos are working, I can see the comments that are coming in so far. So again, grab some paper and pencil, and I'm going to give just a few quick announcements as you do that. First of all, there are some worship songs. I'm going to post those right now, just as an option in case after this you want to listen to some worship music as a family. These are just suggestions. You can use whatever worship songs that you want to use. Also, we're doing a daily Bible reading plan on the Osco Church Facebook page. Those are going live at 7 a.m. every morning. That way, those of us that are morning Bible readers, it's up and ready for us to comment on and share what we're learning from that day's psalm. So if you want to be a part of that, again, it's on the church Facebook page. Every morning goes live at 7 a.m. I might even start posting at 6 a.m. going forward. Every day we're reading through a different psalm. Also, we are still going on with our coloring contest this spring. We might have to start getting creative with how you can get those entries to us. We might have to ask you to mail those in or email them, or perhaps take a picture of them with your phone and send them in. Having said that, there we go. Whoa. You guys have been talking and I have not seen it. Good to know. We're learning here. Yes, fine, great, wonderful. All right. So we're going to start with an activity this morning, and our activity is going to be basically a game of Christian categories. So if you have any kids that maybe don't know how to write yet or don't know their alphabet, then as parents maybe you want to team up with them. But otherwise, this game is for everyone. And what we're going to be doing is our category or our question for this morning is going to be, what are things that God has control over? What are things that God is in control over? And I'm going to be giving you a letter, and you're going to have 45 seconds to list as many things that God has control over that starts with that letter. And what we're trying to do is come up with words or items that no one else will come up with. And I would encourage you, as you get those, to put them into the comments. So again, trying to give you time to get the paper and pencils ready. I obviously don't know who's ready, who isn't, but try to get your pens and pencils and paper ready. You're going to have 45 seconds. I'm going to give you a letter, and you're going to write down as many things that start with that letter that God is in control over. So we'll do 2 rounds of it. We'll go ahead and start the first round right now. So 45 seconds, and let me get my timer ready. 45 seconds, and the letter is going to be S. So name as many things that God is in control over that starts with the letter S starting now. Should have got some game music going. Maybe we'll do that next time. All right, about 10 more seconds here. All right, time is up. Again, in your families, see who got creative, unique answers, and if you can, put them in the comments so we all can see how well we did. All right, see some coming in right now. Self, son, school, yes. Silly string, that's a double S. I think that's bonus points in categories. Storms, yes. Science, sleep and sun. Soul, spring, searching. Serotonin levels. Wow, yeah. Secret societies, that's another double S. Wow, great answers. All right, we'll do one more round of this. Seems like everyone's caught on and understands what we're doing. So 45 seconds, and this time the letter is going to be D. So go ahead and start. Starts with the letter D, things that God is in control over. All right, about 10 more seconds there. Still seeing some answers from the app come in, which is great. All right, time's up. All right, go ahead and drop those in the comments. I think on my end of things, there's a bit of delay from when I see the comments come in. So we've got some D answers coming in now. Got dogs, that was the first thing I thought of. Death, yes. Dads, donuts. Yeah. Denmark, yep. Dear David, yeah. Daylight. Dinosaurs, of course. You know, I can always tell when they use real and fake dinosaurs in movies. I just have that gift. Donald the Duck, yes, that would be a double D. Points for Kelly. Directors, of course. Dwight D. Eisenhower, you know what? I'll count that for bonus points also. Kelly is getting lots of points this morning. Double dares. Disney, darkness, dragons, diets, destiny. Ooh, good one. Destiny, yes. Disasters, discipline. All right. Awesome. It's almost making me want to do another round. What's our time like? Maybe we will. We're flexible this morning. We're learning. Let's do one more round. This is fun. All right, we'll do one more round. I'll just make up a letter off the top of my head, and I'm feeling L. As many things that start with the letter L that God is sovereign or in control over. 45 seconds. Let's go. Just saw that Robin joined. Robin, we're playing a game of categories real quick. We're trying to name as many things that start with the letter L that God is in control over. All right, about 5 more seconds. All right, what are your L answers? L answers. Here we go. Lance. Thank you, Andrea. Yes, great answer. Llamas. Lions, lights. Yes. Loss of life. Yes, it's true. Also, bonus points to Marissa over in the other room. Laughter. Yes. Love, life, laughter. Lottery. All right. As we wait for the rest of these L answers to come in, this is going to have to do with our message this morning. We're going to be talking about the sovereignty of God. Sovereignty is a fancy theology term that basically means to be in control over things. So we got light bulbs, lasagna. I just had lasagna the other night. Great meal. Lizards. Lettuce. Lucky leprechauns. Points to Pastor Paul. Yes. Louisiana. Luke. Yes. Luke Henschel, Luke Skywalker. Anyone named Luke that you know? All right. All right. Thank you for participating. So again, I'm going to move into our message this morning. I'm going to be looking at the book of Isaiah. So if you have your Bible this morning, and as David Platt would say, I hope you do, open up to the book of Isaiah chapter 46. And we're going to be looking at chapter 46, verses 8 through 11. Now, while you turn there, some background. Yeah, I see some L's still coming in. That's great. Latter-day Saints listening. Lily's Limburger. Wonderful. So our background on the book of Isaiah is that at least this part of Isaiah was written during the Babylonian exile. So this was a period of time in the history of Israel where God's people were scattered. They'd been defeated and were under worldly dominion. And really, God's people were separated and they were discouraged oftentimes during this season of life. It's something that perhaps we can relate to right now. We're separated, and it would be easy for us to be discouraged. But beyond what we're going through right now, God's people at this period of time, they couldn't even be home like we are right now. They were in a new place, an uncomfortable place, ruled over by new people, some not so great people, you would say. And in this passage specifically, the prophet Isaiah, on behalf of God, is speaking to the people about the idols of Babylon. And the big main idol that Isaiah is talking about here is the idol of self-worship. In Babylon, many people worship themselves by saying essentially, well, I'm in control and I have control over my own destiny and I have power to make all of these things happen in the world. And Isaiah was speaking out against that. He was reminding them, again, he was being the voice of God here. He was sharing God's words of God saying, no, I'm God and I'm in control. So again, our fancy theology term for this morning is sovereignty. If you look up in a dictionary the word sovereignty, you would see that it means supreme power and authority. Now, we often use this word sovereignty when we look at governments. We look at state governments, federal governments. Perhaps in high school, you remember hearing this term thrown around, sovereignty, when you had to take a government class, or government test rather. But when it comes to governments, we wouldn't quite say that they have supreme power and authority. Yes, they do have authority over the nations or over the states that they rule, but their power and authority is not supreme over the world. Similarly, when we look through history, we see different religions like Greek mythology, where they had many gods that ruled over many things. And you can't quite say about any of those false gods that they claimed supreme power or authority. So you think of the Greek mythological god Poseidon. He was said to be the god over the sea and over horses. But he did not have supreme power or authority over the world. So this is one way that our God in the Bible claims that our God is unique over many religions in history, because we say that God is sovereign, that he has supreme power and authority over all creation. So I'm going to read Isaiah here, and I'm going to have 3 lessons that we can learn about God and his sovereignty through this passage. So again, this is Isaiah chapter 46. We're starting in verse 8. I'm going to start by just reading verses 8 and 9. It says, "Remember this and stand firm. Recall it to mind, you transgressors. Remember the former things of old. For I am God, and there is no other. I am God. There is none like me." So again, listen to the repetition here. Listen to God saying, "I am God. I am God. There is none like me." You know, oftentimes when we talk about the sovereignty of God, it can make us feel kind of uncomfortable. And there's a number of reasons for this. I'll talk about one of the reasons later. But what I want to mention right now is we get uncomfortable because to say that God is in control means that we are not in control. God is God, and we are not God. So thinking about God as sovereign, God being in control, it can make us squirm in our seats a little bit. It can make us uncomfortable. And we can let it harden our hearts if we want. But I want to encourage us to take heart in this fact that God is sovereign. Isaiah is saying this as a warning, yes, but also as an encouragement. He's saying it to transgressors, yes, but he's also saying it to embolden God's people, that God is God. And it says there is no other like him. So the first lesson, I don't think I said it specifically. Our first lesson is that God is in control and that we are not in control. Our second lesson is that God both plans things and he executes that plan. So I'm going to keep reading verses 10 and 11 here. It says that God declares the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things not yet done, saying, "My counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish my purpose. Calling a bird of prey from the east, the man of my counsel from a far country. I have spoken, and I will bring it to pass. I have purposed, and I will do it." So again, our second lesson is that God plans things and he executes the plan. Or to word it another way, God doesn't just say what will happen in the future. He decides what will happen, and then he makes it happen. So notice the language here. It says, "My counsel will stand." God says, "I shall accomplish my purpose." He says, "I have spoken and I will bring it to pass." He says, "I have purposed," or "I have made a purpose. I've decided a purpose." And he says, "I will do it." To quote John Piper on this topic, And in fact, much of this morning's lesson, I owe a debt of gratitude for him and his research on this topic. He says, God is not a fortune teller. He is not a soothsayer. He is not a mere predictor of events. God does not have a crystal ball. He knows what is coming because he plans what is coming and he performs his plans. God knows the future because he plans the future and he accomplishes it. I love this quote. Oftentimes we can think of God knowing the future as merely predicting what's going to happen. But it's not as simple as that. We put God into a box when we say that that's how God predicts the future. No, God knows the future because he has a plan and he has the power to make that plan happen. God never gets frustrated because his plans aren't going his way. He is always in complete control. I'm going to pause here just to through these comments for later. Any questions to respond to here? All right. We'll keep going. Our third lesson is that God holds authority over both nature and over man. That God holds authority over both nature and over man. We see this in verse 11, which I already read. I'm going to reread it now. It says that God calls a bird of prey from the east, and that the man of my counsel from a far country. So notice the difference there. In the first line, he's talking about birds, he's talking about nature, and in the second line, he's talking about man. So God is covering everything here in this verse. Some examples of how God is sovereign over nature. We see in Proverbs that the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Or as we might say it nowadays, we can roll dice. You know, I could roll a die when we're playing categories to see what letter we're going to talk about, but it's God that decides how that's going to land. It says in the book of Job, I love this one. It says, he loads the thick cloud with moisture. The clouds scatter his lightning. The clouds scatter his lightning. God determines weather patterns, the way that those things work. Exodus says, I believe it's when Moses is talking with God and doubting whether he can go and speak to God's people, God tells him, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? And finally in Amos, the book of Amos, you don't hear a lot about Amos usually. But Amos says, does disaster come to a city unless the Lord has done it? And so at this point, I think we've got to take a deep breath. And some of us might have some questions here. We might be wondering, wait a second. Is this actually encouraging? Why is this encouraging that God is the one that makes people blind and deaf and allows disaster to come to a city? You know, it's valid and fair and common for us to ask questions like, well, why doesn't God just end this coronavirus? Why doesn't he just end cancer and blindness and paralyzed limbs? Again, I think these are valid and common questions that are natural for us to have as humans. And it's not wrong for us to wonder. I think it is concerning if we start to critique God because of it, but I think it's valid for us to wonder and ponder and wrestle with these questions. At the end of the day, I'm not sure we know exactly why God allows these things to happen. But there are plenty of possible reasons. Maybe right now with what we're going through, maybe God's trying to wake the world up. Just a possibility. I'm not saying that's what he's doing. Maybe he's trying to just draw us home and get us to value time with family. And maybe he's trying to get us as a nation to be united, as a world to be united. I don't know. These are just possibilities. The point is, we might not know exactly what specific thing God is working through tough times, but just knowing that there are many possibilities shows us that God can be in complete control and be a good, loving God. There's a convicting verse in the story of Joseph. If you remember, Joseph is a guy that his brothers give him over to slavery. He ends up wrongfully put into jail. And at some point, he says to his brothers, "What you intended for evil, God intended for good." And oftentimes we misquote that. We say, "What you intended for evil, God used for good." We make it sound like, well, Satan's doing things and evil people are doing things and God is adjusting his plan to make it work. No, God's in control the whole time. I think it's important here. I've already talked about how God is in control over nations and over sickness and disease and weather. But remember that we also said God is in control over man. And here's what this teaches us. The book of Acts, shortly, maybe a few months after the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus, here's what the apostles pray to God. They say that Herod and Pontius Pilate met together with the Gentiles and the people of Israel in this city to conspire against your holy servant Jesus, who you anointed. And here's the important part. It says they did what your power and will had decided beforehand should happen. So translation, they're saying, those that killed Jesus did what God's will had decided would happen. It's easy for us to wonder and worry when we think about God being in control, why he doesn't do things in a different way. But we ought also to remember that this same God is the one that planned and purposed for his only Son to die on a cross for our sins, to rise again 3 days later, and to call us to be with him. A lot of times when we wonder deep in our hearts why God doesn't do things differently, we're kind of saying that we think that we could do it better than him. And it goes back to why Isaiah wrote this passage, why God put these words into his mouth, is because the people of Babylon, they were worshiping themselves. They were thinking that they were the best people suited to be in control. Well, I don't know about you. If I were in control, I wouldn't have been able to send my own son to die for sinful people. May we be encouraged by this. May we be encouraged by the fact that God demonstrates how much he cares for people through the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. May we be encouraged that God does care about bringing an end to disease and to bad weather patterns, to death, to general sinfulness through the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. God does care about these things. He cares about the coronavirus, and he's shown that through Jesus. I want to read one more passage. We're about done here, and then I'll look through the comments. If anyone's got any questions about what I'm talking about, drop a question in the comment, and I will try to get to it here. But I want to read Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 5. Here's what God is planning in light of Christ and what Christ has done while we are on this temporary earth that is filled with disease and death and darkness at times. Here's what God is planning. It says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice coming from the throne saying, Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and God himself will be with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. That's what we're operating under right now, the old order. And then verse 5 it says, He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. So how do you react when considering that God is in control? Do you maybe question if he's making the right choices? Are you scared? Is it scary not being in control ourselves? I would encourage you this morning, again, instead of letting our hearts be hardened, to instead take heart, knowing that the same God that, yes, is allowing for coronavirus to spread right now is the God who sent his own Son to this earth to die for sinful men. He was raised 3 days later, and he calls people to be with him, to have eternal life, to live in that new creation with him someday. All right, I'm looking down through the comments now. Oh, Diana's wondering, what verses were those from Proverbs and Job? Proverbs was chapter 16, verse 33. In case you want to look that up, Proverbs 16:33. Maybe someone, Marissa or someone, can type that in the comments. Actually, I can do that. And then Job. Job was chapter 37, verse 11. All right. The other, I think we're at the bottom. All right. Give just another second in case anyone has a question. We're just trying different things. Thought a Q&A might be helpful. Otherwise, we're going to move to prayer here. I'm going to just go ahead and copy and paste those prayer prompts so that they're ready to go. All right. I don't see any questions, so I hope that this morning's message was beneficial to you. Please let us know any way that we can be making these online videos better. Well, we want to move into a prayer time right now, so I just posted 4 different prayer prompts that we can use during this time to help us in prayer. Obviously, you can choose any which thing to pray about. These are just guides, prompts to help us if we don't know what to pray for. I'm going to read them out loud real quick. First one is that faith would not decrease but increase during this time. The second one is for us to trust in God's plans and his workings. The third one is that we would not waste this time afforded to us with our families. Something that's really been on my heart recently is to not be so overcome with worry and wonder that we miss out on the opportunities that are happening all around us right now, whether it's with our families or whether it's opportunities to love others in this time. And then the fourth is that many would look back months and years from now and say, you know what? I became a Christian during the pandemic of 2020, or whatever they're going to call it in the future, this period of time, that they would say, you know what? That was when I became a Christian. So right now, I want to encourage you as families to take a few minutes and pray. You'll see me on this video awkwardly looking down at the ground, and then I'll jump in with a prayer from one of the Puritans named Philip Doddridge here in about 4 or 5 minutes or so. This prayer comes from a man named Philip, one of the Puritans, and it's on the topic of asking God to help us through doubts and to increase in faith. It says, "Blessed God, I acknowledge before you my own weakness and insufficiency for anything that is spiritually good. I have experienced it 1,000 times, and yet my foolish heart would again trust itself and resolve to move ahead in its own weakness. But let this be the first fruits of your gracious influence, to bring it to a humble distrust of itself and to rest in you. I rejoice, O Lord, in your assurance that you are ready to shower me with rich benefits. So because of your kind invitation, I boldly approach your throne to find grace for help in every time of need. I don't mean to turn your wonderful grace into an excuse for immorality, or to make my weakness an excuse for negligence and laziness. You have already given me more strength than what I've used. I want to be found diligent in the use of everything you would supply. If not, any petition like this one would be a profane mockery and would probably provoke you to take away what I have, not to give more. But as I firmly resolve and decide to exert myself, I ask for more grace to fulfill that resolution. Lord, fill me with the right attitude toward you and my fellow creatures. Remind me always of your presence and that every secret of my soul is open to you. May I guard against the first sign of sin, and may Satan find no room for his evil suggestions. Fill my heart with your Holy